Welcome back to the Sandy Trail. We are in the middle of episode 8 of season 1. Episode 8 is actually the season 1 finale, so we are approaching the end of the Sandy Trail for season 1 of Sanditon. We are now at the ball in episode 8. There are a lot to talk about, and I'm not sure how many more videos for episode 8 review. At least one more after this one. I hope you enjoy. Any thoughts, comments, as usual, comment them below. Let's get started on these ball scenes.
An effort, good. I'm sure he'll appreciate it.
Why should it be for him?
I don't know what it is, but I find myself quite captivated.
Who else?
First thing first, Lady Denim teased Esther with the fact that Esther dressed up really nice for the ball. We all know she going to the ball just to see Lord Babington and just to hang out with him more. At the same time, Lord Babington and Sydney are going to the ball together, and it's really interesting the compare and contrast of Lord Babington and Sydney as the most eligible bachelors in Sanditon right now, and they each have their own lady that they have their eyes on. So it's really interesting how the writers and the way that Hamlet have going back and forth, showing that Lord Babington and Sydney are at the ball for a similar reason, just to see the ladies and hang out with them at the ball.
You want to tame her, do you?
I believe she's tamed me.
Yes. You can just imagine how that might feel.
Similar to what Sydney going through with Charlotte, it's so obvious that Sydney is thinking of Charlotte in this scene as he is talking to Lord Babington about women in general, of love in general. Again, as we navigate through these ball scenes, I really want to capture the really small details as well, so that's why I'm not in a hurry to talk about episode 8.
Tom asked me to marry him at a ball in Weymouth. How did you know that he was the one? Oh. I think one just does.
The possibility of having Mary Parker as your future sister-in-law, that would be great, you know. You can definitely see that possibility right there in this scene. Charlotte, with confidence, asked Mary, how do you know Tom was the one for you? And Mary was like, oh my goodness, okay, so you and my brother-in-law, Sydney, are becoming an item. Mary, I mean, as a woman, she knew what's going on between Charlotte and Sydney. I think she picked up on it quicker, faster than Tom, and I think that's normal. I feel like women can pick up those vibes much more quicker than men in general. But really nice to have Mary, not only as a motherly guardian, but at the same time as a friend and possibly Charlotte's future sister-in-law. It's just really nice that Charlotte has someone other than Georgiana.
I've had a letter, Father.
All right.
About a position in London. With prospects.
Sanditon not good enough for you now.
What are you talking about?
At first, the father, listening, okay. And then his father started to talk bad about him and, actually, twist the truth, the intention of why James want to leave Sanditon. His father's oh, Sanditon not enough for you, living with me is not enough with you, your life here doesn't bring you happiness, and it's just trying to make his son James feel bad of leaving to go to London. And James no, that's not the reason. This is something that I love to do and my passion. This is my dream job, my dream opportunity. even though it sucks for James to leave Sanditon, leave his father, but he gotta do what he gotta do, right?
It's that Miss Charlotte, isn't it?
It's got nothing to do with her.
Oh, yes, it has. Now you're off to the dance, dressed up like one of them. Get more of the same.
And his father brought in the topic of Charlotte into the conversation. And that's like too far from me. And James knew it too. He's like, don't even talk about Charlotte. Like, Charlotte had been a great friend and a great support to him all along, since the very beginning of the friendship. His father is actually twisting some truths around and try to make it look bad on his son when it's really not. His son is just doing something that he loved to do.
Well, off you go then.
Don't you worry yourself. I am going. And soon enough, I'll have left Sanditon, and I won't spare a moment's thought for the selfish, miserable old man I left behind.
His father made it even worse. He brought in the idea of upper class and lower class, right? The rich people and the poor people. And he believed that his son is turning into one of those middle class, upper class people, and dressed up like he's a rich man and that he belonged with them and not with his father and the poor people in Sanditon. Did James ever change himself? I don't think so. He just do what he loved to do, and sometimes opportunities fall into connection to richer people, and it's just how life turned out for James, and he didn't force it. He just followed what he wanted to do and continued to do what he loved to do, and this opportunity will bring him to greater connection and probably people that make a lot of money, and he probably end up making much more money than his father ever did. And I think that's a great thing, and I think we can relate that to today time, how some students are first generation in college, right? And then they get a college degree and they turn out to be making more money than the parents ever did before them. So this is an exciting opportunity for James, and he probably thinking like the benefits of going after this opportunity is that he can be more advanced in his trade and become a manager someday, and own their own business and make more money and support himself and his future family and support his dad back home. He wouldn't leave his father in the ditch, and hopefully he will make amends for his father. I mean, the way that conversation ended, that was really bad.
No further introductions are necessary, so on with the dance, and let joy be unconfined.
Charlotte looked over to where Sydney was standing next to his friend, Lord Babington. I never knew his first name, or I forgot. I need to look it up. It's like Lord Babington, like such a long name. Anyway, yeah, so this is a great night, right? A great event, a fun event, and this should be a great opportunity for Charlotte and Sydney to hang out more and actually give an early taste to what it would look like to see Sydney and Charlotte be a couple in public, right? The last time they had that big hit, well, multiple hisses on the cliff, and no one was around, but now they get to experience dancing at the ball as actually a couple. Compared to the first episode of the season, they danced where they were really complete strangers to one another, and now they will be dancing together as a couple.
Sydney, you must come and meet Mr. Naylor. He's just taken an apartment on Waterloo Terrace.
Unfortunately, Sydney tried to get the first dance, Charlotte's first dance, to be with him, but unfortunately, someone interrupted his plan.
Sydney.
Ah, Georgiana. You had fun this evening?
Sydney keeps looking for Charlotte, and I think you'll get to see that throughout the episode. He really wants to dance with Charlotte, and he knows that she loves to dance, and of course the only person that she wants to dance right now tonight at the ball is with Sydney. While he trying to find Charlotte, we get to see Georgiana arrive to the ball, and her first mission of the night, even before the fun begins for her, she wanted to talk to Sydney.
What are you up to with Charlotte?
I don't understand your meaning.
You've done your best to ruin my happiness. How could I trust you not to ruin hers?
Nothing could be further from my mind.
Georgiana is a good friend. I mean, we have to give her the credit for that. She looks out after Charlotte, and it's really good to have a friend that has a outside perspective. Just in case if anything happened, Charlotte is just in that bubble of happiness and falling in love with Sydney, and nothing wrong with that. But from Georgiana's stand, she's like watching out for a friend and making sure that Sydney will give Charlotte really true happiness, and that he will not hurt her in any way, and that this is the real deal for Charlotte. And of course Georgiana wants Charlotte to be happy with Sydney or whoever guy she ends up with, but because of her past experiences and her relationship with Sydney, Georgiana is being extra careful of allowing her friend Charlotte to be fully committed to Sydney, and she just worries that something similar happened to her will happen to Charlotte. And I think we should understand her, but at the same time, Sydney, you don't know the whole story of myself and Charlotte. We went through ups and downs, and we as the viewers saw that, but at the same time, Sydney, I know where I stand with Charlotte. We good. Why did Mary? I wish Mary could have not went to Sydney, because Sydney was already approaching Charlotte and wanted to ask her for a dance. I just wish Mary was just standing next to Charlotte when Sydney approached them.
Miss Hayward, might I have the pleasure?
Whatever Mary doing right now, it gave an opportunity to James to ask Charlotte for a dance, and we missed a sidlotte dance again. James knew what he did, but this might be important for him to ask Charlotte for a dance. Is he trying to convince her to fall for him, or there's something else that he wants to discuss with Charlotte? Charlotte, of course, doesn't want to be rude. She accepted the dance offer with James, and she looked back to Sydney, and Sydney seemed to understand. Charlotte is not an ugly woman, so of course single guys are interested to dance with her.
I wanted to tell you, miss. I've been offered an excellent situation in London. I plan to accept it.
To be an architect?
Well, an apprentice first.
Oh, Mrs. Stringer, I'm so pleased that your talent's been recognised.
James wants to announce the good news to Charlotte, and that's just a really nice friendship that they have with one another, and he knows that she's been supporting him all along and that she'll be happy for him, and I'm pretty sure the way she congratulated him showed her happiness for him, made him feel really good, especially after that tough conversation that he had with his father.
Although you'll be much missed here in Sanditon.
Thank you, miss.
I had always thought I'd be leaving at the season's end, but I'm not so sure.
Then the conversation shifted to Charlotte, and Charlotte started explaining to James about her future in Sanditon, how she believed that she's gonna stay in town longer than she expected, and that there is something that's holding her in Sanditon.
You found a reason to stay?
Yes. I believe I have.
James is a very respectful friend, even though he didn't get his dream girl in Charlotte, he still supports her, and even though Charlotte doesn't know that James know about her and Sydney, she nervously, shyly revealed to James, like, yeah, like, you know, I know that there's something in Sanditon that holding me hostage in a good way. Like, I'm not in a hurry to go back home. And James, like, listening to her, but he knew what she meant. And that's when he told her the next few words in the next scene.
I hope you'll be very happy, miss. And I hope he'll prove worthy of you. He's a lucky man, Miss Hayward. Truly.
Sydney smiled watching Charlotte having a good time dancing with James. Sydney really never knew ever that James knew what was going on between Sydney and Charlotte. Again, such a supportive friend that James is toward Charlotte. And you see, like, from the beginning of the dance, like, Charlotte really didn't want to dance with James, but they got comfortable with one another, just as friends, and enjoying this dance together. And they basically, like, caught up with their news, their updates in life with each other. Like, hey, I'm moving to London. I'm actually staying in Sanditon for a little bit longer than expected. And then those words that he said at the end of the dance is like one of the sweetest things a guy could ever say to a woman, especially when that woman is not falling for that man. She's falling for a different man, and it's just so much support and mutual love and respect. What James said to Charlotte at the end of the dance, and I think Charlotte was a little bit surprised though. She's like, "Oh, okay, so you know about it," and at the same time, I think she was relieved too, because you know there's no hard feelings between her and James, and that I think it means a lot to her that James support her relationship with Sydney, and that he wants the best for her.
And what are you waiting for? You haven't taken your eyes off her all night.
I hope you receive a favourable answer, old friend.
Lord Babington knows what's up too. What he said though at the very end, it sounds like there's a proposal coming into play really soon, hopefully, between Sydney and Charlotte. But yeah, what are you waiting for? Like, you know, go in, join the dance, like talk to her. But I think Sydney really wants to find that right perfect moment to be alone with Charlotte. I think at this point, I think he's tired of trying to get a dance with Charlotte. I think he preferred to be alone with Charlotte. Charlotte kept looking at Sydney. Sydney kept staring at her with confidence, and she's smiling at her. She really enjoyed watching her dance, and just the little things that make you happy. And he started to walk away, and Charlotte like, okay, where is he going?
At last. I thought I'd never get you alone.
Remember the balcony in episode 1, and now we in the balcony again in episode 8. Again, like there's so much compare and contrast going on in episode 8. Not only with Lord Babington and Sydney having their own lover that they're chasing after, but also the balcony in episode 1 versus episode 8. Such a whole different vibe, atmosphere in episode 8 than in episode 1. He couldn't wait to be with her, to be alone with her. He's like, finally, like, we are together.
Do you remember the last conversation we had on this balcony?
All too well.
What a brute I was.
I deserved everything you said.
No, you didn't.
It was a very brutal conversation that she had with Sydney in episode 1 on that balcony. And now so much has happened ever since. And right now in episode 8 on that balcony is definitely much more positive. And it's really sweet of Sydney to admit that he was disrespectful towards Charlotte the last time that they were on the balcony. And Charlotte, of course, you know, the nicest person ever on the planet, she's like, you know, I took your words, like, you were right, like, you know, what's wrong with me judging your family when I really don't know them. But we know that Sydney attack her back in a rude way. He could have been a little bit more compassion toward her in episode 1 on that balcony, in my opinion. But it's just really nice that how much Sydney had changed and how humble he is to admit that to her right now.
I hope that I'm a different man now.
No. You're the same man. But much improved.
I love what Charlotte said to Sydney. Sydney went through a lot in his life before Charlotte came into his life, and when she did, it brought him to another level in his life. He blossomed again. He opened his heart again to love. He fell for another woman, Charlotte, and she brought something to him that he didn't expect, and he was willing to be a better man, not only for himself and his family, but to Charlotte too. It shows that Charlotte supported him when he was mean to her. She still supported him even now when he is nicer to her. She's willing to stick by his side, and not only as a friend, but as a lover too. Like, hey, you know, we go through the ups and downs in our own personal walk in life, but also together as a couple. Life is not perfect, right? No one is perfect, and Charlotte sees the good in Sydney, and the good in him is much more, like, it surpasses his flaws, if that makes sense. So Charlotte, like, hey, like, you changed a lot since I came here. I see the good side of you, and I didn't see that in episode 1, but now in episode 8, Charlotte, like, you're a good man, Sydney, and she knows that she played an important role in that.
If I have changed at all, it is in no small part down to you. I have never wanted to put myself in someone else's power before. I've never wanted to care for anyone but myself.
He very humble, and he thanked her basically for everything she done and how she played an important role in his life for like the past few months ever since they first met each other in Sanditon. He appreciates her. He's very grateful to have her in his life.
Yes, I would. Charlotte.
Away, unharm me, you blackguards!
Freaking Edward. It really made me mad the first time I watched this episode. But it was so obvious. I mean, a sidlotte proposal should have happened right there and then. I really like how Sydney said Charlotte again, the name Charlotte again. When he said Miss Hayward, and then he paused and he like smiled. He knew what he was about to ask her was like the best question that he could ever ask her in his entire life. He knew that she was the one for him, and she's like, Charlotte, and Charlotte knew there, like, okay, there's the moment, there's the reason why I'm not leaving Sanditon. He is the reason why Charlotte is staying in town, and to just, you know, be happy with him. But unfortunately, Edward, yikes.